On August 15th, 2026, something happened that forced humanity to confront a truth we had been ignoring for decades. Space is not separate from warfare. Space is not above the conflict. A facility in Russia, the Progress Rocket Space Center in Samara, was struck by long-range missiles. The facility that has been assembling the rockets that carry cosmonauts to orbit since before you were born. And it revealed something shocking. Space infrastructure is vulnerable, fragile, targetable. For 70 years, we built this dream of space exploration. We sent people into orbit. We built space stations. We created networks of satellites monitoring Earth. We assumed this infrastructure was protected. We were wrong. On August 15th, 2026, we discovered that the entire foundation of human space access, the factories, the rockets, the launch sites, the supply chains, could be destroyed in a single coordinated strike. This discovery reshapes everything about how we think about space. This discovery reveals a fragility we didn't want to admit. And this discovery forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. What happens to space exploration when the infrastructure that gets us there becomes a target? This is the story of August 15th, 2026. This is the story of how we discovered space has a weakness. To understand why this matters, you need to know what the Progress Rocket Space Center actually is. Picture a sprawling manufacturing complex in a Russian city. It's not a military base. It looks like an industrial facility. But inside, something extraordinary happens every year. This facility builds the Soyuz rocket. The Soyuz is not just Russian. The Soyuz is the workhorse of human spaceflight. Right now, at this exact moment, cosmonauts are aboard the International Space Station. How did they get there? Soyuz rocket. The ISS is a partnership between the US, Russia, Europe, Japan, and Canada. How does Russia contribute to that partnership? Through Soyuz launches, but the Soyuz does more than carry cosmonauts. The Soyuz carries cargo to the ISS. The Soyuz carries supplies that keep the space station functional. The Soyuz carries scientific experiments, food, water, oxygen, replacement parts. Every 6 months, a new crew flies up on Soyuz. The old crew comes down. This has been happening continuously for over 20 years. But here's what most people don't realize. The Soyuz isn't just a civilian spacecraft. The Soyuz is also how Russia launches its military satellites. Reconnaissance satellites that image Earth from space. Communication satellites that link military networks. Navigation satellites. Early warning systems. The Progress Rocket Space Center assembles all of this. It's not just a space exploration infrastructure. It's a space military infrastructure. And on August 15th, 2026, it was targeted in a strike. This creates an immediate, urgent question. What happens to the International Space Station? Right now, there are people living in orbit. They depend on resupply missions that arrive every few months. They depend on crew rotations that happen twice a year. All of that depends on Soyuz rockets being built, tested, and launched from Progress. If production is disrupted, if the facility is damaged, if the supply chain is broken, what happens to the cosmonauts on the ISS? They can extend their stay. They have backup supplies. NASA and international partners have contingency plans. But suddenly, an infrastructure we relied on as permanent is revealed to be fragile. And that's just the immediate question. There's a bigger one. For 70 years, we've assumed that the infrastructure of space, the factories, the launch sites, the manufacturing facilities were somehow exempt from warfare. We didn't think of them as military targets. We thought the space was different. That space was above the conflict. On August 15, 2026, that assumption shattered. Humanity discovered that the space infrastructure is not exempt. Space infrastructure is a target. Space infrastructure can be destroyed. And that discovery reshapes everything. Let me explain exactly what happened and why it matters. The Progress Rocket Space Center is located in Samara, Russia. It's one of Russia's oldest aerospace facilities. During the Cold War, Samara was a major center for Soviet rocket development. After the Soviet Union collapsed, Progress continued assembling rockets. For decades, it was one of the most productive space launch vehicle manufacturing facilities in the world. A Soyuz rocket is massive, 49 meters tall, about the height of a 16-story building. Building 1 is complex. It requires precision manufacturing. It requires thousands of components sourced from around Russia. It requires assembly, integration, testing. The Progress facility does all of this. On average, Progress assembles and launches about 20 or 25 Soyuz rockets per year. That's one Soyuz rocket every 2 weeks. Each rocket costs between $40 and $70 million to build and launch. That's roughly $800 million to $1.75 billion worth of rocket production per year. Now imagine if that facility is damaged. Imagine if the assembly lines are destroyed. Imagine if the quality control systems are damaged. Imagine if key manufacturing equipment is destroyed. Suddenly, you can't build rockets. You can't launch people to space. You can't maintain your satellite constellation. You can't fulfill your international commitments. On August 15, 2026, this isn't a hypothetical. Intelligence reports suggest the strike was precise. It targeted specific areas of the Progress facility. The damage appears significant. Now, Russia will attempt to repair the facility. They will try to restore production, but repairs take time. Rebuilding damaged infrastructure takes months. And here's what's crucial. Russia doesn't have backup production capacity. Unlike the United States, which has multiple contractors building launch vehicles, SpaceX, Blue Origin, United Launch Alliance, Russia has Progress as its primary Soyuz manufacturer. Lose Progress production capacity and you lose your primary path to space. This creates a cascade of consequences. First, crew rotations to the ISS could be delayed. The next crew was scheduled to launch in September 2026. If Soyuz production is compromised, that could slip. That doesn't immediately endanger the current crew. They can stay longer, but it creates operational complications. It creates uncertainty. Second, Russia's ability to maintain its military satellite constellation is affected. Russia operates reconnaissance satellites for intelligence gathering. These are actively being used to monitor military situations globally. Russia operates communication satellites that link distributed military networks. Russia operates early warning satellites that detect missile launches. All of these are launched on Soyuz rockets. If you can't launch replacement satellites, if you can't maintain your constellation, you'll lose capability. Third, Russia's ability to compete in the international space market is damaged. Before this strike, Russia was already losing commercial launch business to SpaceX. Now, reliability concerns will make international customers even more hesitant to book Soyuz launches. Fourth, and this is profound, it reveals something about the fragility of our space infrastructure. For 70 years, we've been building a civilization that depends on space. GPS satellites guide billions of people. Communication satellites link the world. Weather satellites predict hurricanes. Earth observation satellites monitor environmental change. All of this infrastructure depends on manufacturing facilities that can be destroyed in a single coordinated strike. On August 15th, 2026, this wasn't abstract theory. This was real. A facility was damaged. Production was disrupted. The infrastructure that carries humans to orbit is now compromised. This is a discovery about the nature of modern space access. Space is not separate from terrestrial concerns. Space depends on Earth, and if you can destroy the factories on Earth, you can destroy access to space. Here's what changes after August 15th, 2026. For the first time, the world confronts a truth about space exploration that was always there, but we pretended not to see. Space infrastructure is vulnerable. We built an entire civilization in space: satellites, space stations, networks. Without protecting the infrastructure that gets things into space. We assumed a space was exempt from warfare. We were wrong. The revelation is profound because it shifts how we think about a space entirely. Space is not a realm separate from Earth. Space is dependent on Earth. The factories that build rockets are on Earth. The launch sites where rockets are assembled and fueled are on Earth. The supply chains that provide components for rockets are on Earth. The people who design and build space systems are on Earth. Destroy enough of this terrestrial infrastructure and you destroy a space access. That's the revelation of August 15th, 2026. Now, what does this mean? First, it means nations are rethinking how they protect space infrastructure. The United States has multiple launch providers: SpaceX, United Launch Alliance, Blue Origin. If one facility is damaged, others can compensate. But this wasn't always true. For decades, the US depended primarily on the space shuttle. When the space shuttle was grounded after the Challenger disaster, America had no independent path to space for years. We learned that lesson. We built redundancy into our launch capability. Now other nations are learning it too. China has multiple launch facilities distributed geographically. India is building launch capability. Europe is developing Ariane rockets. Japan is investing in the spaceplane technology, because now we all know concentrated production in one location is a vulnerability. Second, it reveals that space access is not just a scientific or commercial concern. Space access is a matter of national security. If you can't launch satellites, you can't maintain military communications. If you can't launch reconnaissance satellites, you can't gather intelligence. If you can't launch navigation satellites, you can't guide precision weapons. Space access is how modern militaries function. And if that access can be interrupted by striking manufacturing facilities on Earth, that's a strategic vulnerability. Third, it reveals that the International Space Station partnership is more fragile than we thought. The ISS was built on the assumption that the space was exempt from conflict. Russia, America, Europe, Japan, all working together in orbit while competing on Earth. But if Russia can't maintain reliable Soyuz production, Russia's role in ISS operations becomes uncertain. That partnership was always geopolitical, but now it's fragile in ways we didn't admit. Fourth, and this is the most profound revelation, it shows that the dream of a space independence is still distant. Humans haven't yet achieved true independence in a space. We haven't built self-sustaining space infrastructure. We haven't created space settlements that don't depend on Earth. We haven't established a space industry that can operate independently of terrestrial vulnerability. We still depend entirely on launch systems built on Earth. We still depend entirely on supply chains on Earth. We still depend entirely on terrestrial infrastructure. That means space is not yet a domain we've truly conquered. Space is still an extension of Earth conflict. On August 15th, 2026, that uncomfortable truth became impossible to ignore. The revelation is that we haven't actually left Earth yet. We visit space, we use space, we depend on space, but we haven't transcended our dependence on Earth. And that means space is vulnerable. That's the real lesson of August 15th, 2026. Let me expand this to its fullest implications. This isn't just about Russia or Ukraine or military strategy. This is about the future of a space civilization itself. For 70 years, since a Sputnik launched in 1957, we've assumed that a space is the frontier of human civilization. Space is where we go to escape terrestrial limitations. Space is where scientific progress happens. Space is where human potential expands. But August 15, 2026 reveals a harsh truth. We can't escape Earth. Not yet. We're still bound to it. Our access to space is still completely dependent on it. Let me trace the implications forward. Implication 1. The fragility of satellite civilization. Right now, civilization depends on satellites. Billions of people use GPS for navigation. That's a Space Force satellites. Banks depend on communication satellites. Electricity grids depend on communication satellites. Weather forecasting depends on weather satellites. Climate monitoring depends on Earth observation satellites. Disaster response depends on satellite imagery. Scientific understanding of Earth depends on satellite data. We've built a civilization that is utterly dependent on satellites, and those satellites get to orbit on launch vehicles built in terrestrial facilities that can be destroyed. On August 15th, 2026, we discovered that satellite civilization is vulnerable. Not vulnerable to space debris or solar activity, vulnerable to terrestrial destruction of manufacturing facilities. If someone destroyed the factories that build launch vehicles, we couldn't maintain our satellite networks. GPS would eventually degrade. Communication would be disrupted. Weather forecasting would become primitive. We'd lose capabilities we depend on entirely. That's a vulnerability that most people don't think about, but it's real. And August 15th, 2026 proved it. Implication 2. The divergence of space powers. For decades, space competition has been controlled competition. America and the Soviet Union competed in space during the Cold War, but both respected certain boundaries. Launch facilities were not targeted. Space was treated as a realm separate from conventional warfare. That assumption just died. Now, the calculus changes. If space infrastructure is targetable, then every nation with space capabilities must now protect it. Every nation must disperse production. Every nation must build redundancy. This means a space competition becomes more expensive. It means nations must invest more heavily in distributed manufacturing. It means conflicts on Earth could escalate to include strikes on space infrastructure. In other words, space becomes integrated into terrestrial conflict in new ways. This accelerates the space arms race because now space defense is a necessity. Nations must protect not just their satellites, but the factories that build rockets. This is a new category of military concern, and it's going to reshape how nations invest in space. Implication 3. The opportunity for new space powers. Now here's something interesting. The nations that were already advanced in space, America, Russia, Europe, are now facing the challenge of protecting distributed manufacturing networks. But the emerging space powers, India, Japan, China, have an opportunity. They can build their space infrastructure from the beginning with protection in mind. They can disperse manufacturing geographically. They can build redundancy into their supply chains. They can invest in space access as a protected strategic capability. This actually accelerates the timeline for new space powers to become competitive, because they're not trying to maintain legacy infrastructure built in the Cold War. They're building new infrastructure designed for a conflict-aware world. This means the next 10 years will see significant shifts in space power. It means America's space dominance might be challenged more quickly than expected. It means China's space investments become more strategically significant. It means India's space program becomes more important to global space access. August 15th, 2026 didn't just damage a Russian facility, it accelerated the multipolarization of space. Implication 4. The future of human spaceflight. Here's something that keeps space agencies awake at night. Human spaceflight depends on reliable launch systems. The ISS requires crew rotations every 6 months. To rotate crews, you need launch vehicles. If Russia's Soyuz is unreliable, how do you get people to the ISS? NASA has commercial crew vehicles in development. SpaceX's Crew Dragon can launch people, but there's a lag time. There's development time, there's testing time. If Soyuz production is disrupted, there's a gap where no one can launch. That means no crew rotations. That means the ISS mission becomes impossible, or the ISS becomes an American-only facility instead of an international partnership. This seems trivial, just operational details, but it represents something profound. It means the era of international cooperation in space might be ending. If Russian rockets are unreliable, Russia can't contribute to ISS operations. If Russia can't contribute, why should Russia participate? The ISS could become an American, European, Japanese facility instead of a truly international one. That's a loss of something precious, the idea that the space is shared human domain. That's a profound implication of August 15th, 2026. Implication 5, the militarization of space acceleration. For decades, people have warned about weaponization of space. The idea of weapons deployed in space, kinetic strikes, laser weapons, anti-satellite missiles. We've been worried about that, but August 15th, 2026 reveals something different. Space doesn't need to be weaponized. Space is already militarized. The real warfare is happening on Earth, destroying the infrastructure that accesses space. This is actually more sophisticated than space weapons. This is infrastructure warfare. This is supply chain warfare. This is the weaponization of vulnerability itself. Going forward, nations will invest in protecting launch facilities, dispersing manufacturing geographically, securing supply chains, building redundancy into space access systems, developing rapid response launch capabilities. All of this is militarization of space access, not through weapons in space, but through military protection of terrestrial space infrastructure. That's a new arms race that started on August 15th, 2026. Implication 6, the future of commercial space. Now, think about commercial space companies. SpaceX launches rockets from Boca Chica, Texas. Blue Origin launches from West Texas. United Launch Alliance launches from Florida and California. All of these are vulnerable to strikes. Before August 15th, it was 26. That seemed paranoid. Now it seems obvious. If a nation wanted to disrupt American space access, they could strike commercial launch facilities. That means commercial space companies must now think about security. They must think about protecting their facilities. They must think about backup launch sites. They must think about resilience. This drives up costs. This makes space access more expensive. This makes commercial space less competitive with international alternatives. This affects investment decisions. This affects which companies survive and which don't. August 15th, 2026 just raised the cost of doing business in space. Implication? 7. The psychological shift. Most profoundly, August 15th, 2026 represents a psychological shift. For 70 years, we've told ourselves a story. The story is, space is different. Space is the future. Space is where humanity transcends its limitations. We told ourselves that space is above the conflict, that space is a domain of cooperation. On August 15th, 2026, that story cracked. We discovered that the space depends on terrestrial infrastructure. We discovered that terrestrial conflict extends to space infrastructure. We discovered that space is not exempt from warfare. That's a psychological blow. It means the dream of a space as a realm of pure exploration and cooperation is not safe. Space is embedded in terrestrial reality. Space is subject to terrestrial conflict. Space cannot transcend human conflict. That's a loss. That's a recognition that we haven't actually escaped Earth yet. And that recognition changes how we think about the future. On August 15th, 2026, humanity discovered something uncomfortable. Space infrastructure is vulnerable. Space access is fragile. Space is not separate from terrestrial conflict. This discovery reshapes how we think about a space exploration. For 70 years, we've dreamed of space as the frontier, the place where we transcend limitations, the place where nations cooperate instead of compete, the place where the human spirit expands beyond terrestrial boundaries. August 15th, 2026 reminds us that we're not there yet. We still depend on Earth. We still depend on factories on Earth. We still depend on infrastructure that can be destroyed. We still depend on supply chains that can be disrupted. We haven't achieved the space independence. We're still visitors to space. We still need Earth to get there. That's the revelation of August 15th, 2026. Now what happens next? Nations will protect their space infrastructure. Nations will invest in redundant launch capability. Nations will disperse manufacturing. Nations will recognize a space access as a strategic necessity. The cost of a space access will increase. Space will become more militarized. Space competition will become more intense. But something else will happen too. This vulnerability will motivate innovation. It will motivate nations to build more reliable launch systems. It will motivate companies to create more efficient path to space. It will accelerate development of space planes and reusable launch vehicles. It will push humanity toward the dream of true space independence. Eventually, we will transcend this vulnerability. Eventually, we will build a space infrastructure that doesn't depend on Earth. Eventually, we will establish a space civilization that is self-sufficient. But that day is not today. Today, August 15th, 2026, is a day we discovered our fragility. It's a day we discovered we're still bound to Earth. It's a day we discovered the dream of a space is still a dream, not reality. If this changed how you think about a space infrastructure, about the future of civilization, about our connection to Earth, subscribe for more documentaries that explore the intersection of science, technology, and human future. Like this video if August 15th's revelation shifted your perspective. Comment, what should humanity do to protect a space access? Thanks for watching. This is MindSnap. We'll see you next time. On August 15th, 2026, humanity discovered something uncomfortable. Space infrastructure is vulnerable. Space access is fragile. Space is not separate from terrestrial conflict. This discovery reshapes how we think about a space exploration. For 70 years, we've dreamed of a space as the frontier, the place where we transcend limitations, the place where nations cooperate instead of compete, the place where the human spirit expands beyond terrestrial boundaries. August 15th, 2026 reminds us that we're not there yet. We still depend on Earth. We still depend on factories on Earth. We still depend on infrastructure that can be destroyed. We still depend on supply chains that can be disrupted. We haven't achieved a space independence. We're still visitors to space. We still need Earth to get there. That's the revelation of August 15th, 2026. Now what happens next? Nations will protect their space infrastructure. Nations will invest in redundant launch capability. Nations will disperse manufacturing. Nations will recognize space access as a strategic necessity. The cost of space access will increase. Space will become more militarized. Space competition will become more intense. But something else will happen too. This vulnerability will motivate innovation. It will motivate nations to build more reliable launch systems. It will motivate companies to create more efficient path to space. It will accelerate development of the space planes and reusable launch vehicles. It will push humanity toward the dream of true space independence. Eventually, we will transcend this vulnerability. Eventually, we will build a space infrastructure that doesn't depend on Earth. Eventually, we will establish a space civilization that is self-sufficient. But that day is not today. Today, August 15th, 2026, is a day we discovered our fragility. It's a day we discovered we're still bound to Earth. It's a day we discovered the dream of a space is still a dream, not reality. If this changed how you think about a space infrastructure, about the future of civilization, about our connection to Earth, subscribe for more documentaries that explore the intersection of science, technology, and human future. Like this video, if August 15th's revelation shifted your perspective, comment. What should humanity do to protect space access? Thanks for watching. This is MindSnap. We'll see you next time.